Well, ladies and gentlemen, a lot can change from one year to the next. And it was a very unexpected and challenging week here, but also got a lot of things done as well. So there was also always two sides to the coin. But now there's a giant penguin in my pile of junk. And so give me one moment and let's see what we can do. See, there was a poinsettia and a Christmas tree, but no long. Time to move on from the old 2023 Farmer's Almanac. Founded in 1792, I don't really read most of these. I just find the astrological section most interesting. So they do bright stars, transit times, rise and set times of the stars, predicted eclipses and partial eclipses for the year, and much more like that. I find it interesting, these certain areas of knowledge, the visible planets as well. I'm sure many of you have seen this before, but like I said, time to move on from the old Farmer's Almanac. Finding a space for it, though, is the question. Well, that's some progress. It did say recording in progress, so I guess we're always somehow making progress. The Tao does nothing but leaves nothing undone, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it is Tuesday, so thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me, and that should be good. Tuesday Tao. Remember to do the Tao now. And we haven't done that for a long time, so let's come over here to the bookshelf. To change your thoughts, change your life, living the wisdom of the Tao by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, living the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching. Ladies and gentlemen, because 500 years before the birth of Jesus Christ, a God-realized being named Lao-tzu in ancient China dictated 81 verses, which are regarded by many as the ultimate commentary on the nature of our existence. But what does that really mean? I mean, the nature of our existence, what does that mean to you? An understanding of life? Or a breakdown of the purpose for being here? I mean, the nature is probably just the quality of its function or an explanation of its way, which sometimes is a translation of the Tao, the way, the Tao Te Ching being the book of the Great Way. So, let me continue this classic text of these verses called the Tao Te Ching or Great Way. Offers advice and guidance that is balanced, moral, spiritual, and always concerned with working for the good, for the greater good, for that which we are a part of, which is oneness and love and harmony and unity, out of which all of the diversity and duality springs forth from, as we've been learning in our research here on this channel for the last few years. I think my first video was in 2016, but I didn't really start doing videos like this. And well, not all my videos have been like this, just rambling. And if you are here still listening to this video, then you must understand and already know who I am. And if not, then thank you for being here and joining me. And I love and appreciate each and every one of you. I always have no idea where I'm going to go. Lately, we've been doing the wisdom of Dr. David R. Hawkins, Classical Teachings on Spiritual Truth and Enlightenment, on Tuesdays here, and we're all the way up to the part entitled Surrender. And as you're willing to let go, you'll see the ego hangs on because it's getting something out of it. Now, everybody's ego is going to resist this, expect it to. And that is a subject we've been going through lately, but for some reason, I feel myself inspired to come back to the Tuesday Tao and Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. And so, living from the void. This is the 11th verse of the Tao Te Ching. 30 spokes converge upon a single hub. It is on that hole in the center. The use of the cart hinges. Shape clay into a vessel. It is the space within that makes it useful. Carve fine doors and windows. But the room is useful in its emptiness. The usefulness of what is depends on what is not. The usefulness of what is depends on what is not. It is the space between the bars that holds the tiger. "13 spokes. The space within the jar. Shape clay into a vessel. But it is the space within that makes it useful. It isn't the pot or the jar or the pitcher, the water pitcher. If that's what you imagine it as, a beautiful clay shapen water pitcher. But it isn't the pitcher or the clay or the shape that makes it useful. I mean, you could maybe argue the shape, but it is the space within. Now, do we have this within our own selves? It isn't our thoughts or our actions or our body that is useful, but it is that space within. It is mind. It is mind. And that's what the Hermetic teachings always go back to. Oh, that's what all teachings really always go back to. Is your quality of thinking, your ability of mind. But this seems to be the most difficult area for many of us, is to understand that we have an ability to, really gain control over our mind when for most of us, it seems like thoughts and, the activity of our mind is just kind of out of control and things just kind of pop in, the pop-in theory, you know? But even there, it's like, oh yeah, then it's not mine. It just came from somewhere else. And so you can discard it and begin to choose anew, but who would know to do that unless you've been told? But that is important to do so. The space within the vessel. And see, maybe it isn't even the mind and the thinking, but the lack thereof, the space, the source from which the operation of the mind comes from. That is really what makes the mind useful. And there, in turn, which makes the rest of our lives useful. Maybe there's always this. How did you describe it with the spokes? A single hub. 30 spokes, not 13. Okay. Even there, though, I wonder if there's significance in the number 30 there. 30 spokes converge upon a single hub. It is on the whole. See, that made me think of God. universe, the source, Atum, grand organized design, God, great spirit, whatever you call it, the Tao, ladies and gentlemen. It is on this hole in the center that the use of the cart hinges. So, in other words, the use of the entire cart, metaphor this to your life, to the world, the use of this totally depends and hinges and hangs on the single hub in the center that everything else is connected to. Once again, it's this idea of something within, something in the center, something in from the source. So you shape the clay into a vessel. It's the space within that makes it useful. The room is useful in its emptiness, not clever doors and walkways and windows, but in its emptiness is what makes it useful. I mean, you could say also tables and chairs, but where is all of this going and why am I saying any of this? I don't know. So hopefully you're getting value. If you are, thank you for being here. Like I said in the beginning, it's been a very challenging week. My girlfriend's father passed away just over a week ago. And, that's always something I've yet to experience fully for myself. And so we all do the best we can in the hardest of times. And so honor and reverence and peace to Dean. As you can see probably in the back there, we've also acquired a cat named Bean. I didn't realize they rhymed until just now. So you may see Bean in the future as well, or hear her. For now, she seems to be nice and comfy somewhere. I guess it is nighttime for cats during this time of the day. However, living from the void is what we are talking about here today. And so I was hoping maybe something fitting would come up for us. Practicing the power of silence every day. The usefulness of what is. See, that's the point. Whether it is you or me or the book or, anything else. The usefulness of this depends on what it is not. This is a paradox because you would think the usefulness of something depends on itself. However, it is that space within, the hole in the center that the spokes converge upon, that the use of the entire cart depends on, or the shape of the vessel, but it is the space that makes it useful, and the emptiness of the room. The usefulness of what is depends upon what is not. So the usefulness of the room depends upon what is not the room, but rather just nothing. Once again, the usefulness of the cup is just technically nothing. This the empty space inside it. This makes me think of music. Hope you got yourself some tea, ladies and gentlemen, or a beverage, and you're comfortable. Because we will begin reading Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's words about this subject here in just a moment. depends upon what is not. We all sit in a ring and suppose, while the secret sits in the center and knows. While the secret sits in the center and knows. And see, while we all continue our ideations and explanations and attempts to understand and ramblings, and he who speaks knows not, and he who speaks not knows. I mean, it's like this idea that the more we do of this is really missing the point. We could just sit here and be quiet, and that would be experiencing God. I mean, if you're confused, that's why I'm here on this channel, seeking to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment and a greater awareness and understanding of the nature of our reality, which includes God or the universe or the Tao, grand organized design. And we're always trying to figure out this thing and how we can have more peace and harmony and happiness in a very deep sense, not just a light, silly sense. Talking about contentment, real feeling of comfort and success, and everything that contentment adds up to. And so through researching and discovering anything that falls within the category of spiritual philosophy, mysticism, and much, much more, that hopefully we can discover and create a more aligned way, the Tao, the way that we can live in our lives, that we can be more aligned with Source, with this space within that makes everything useful, that life depends upon, that our very lives hinge on. Remember, 30 spokes into a single center, which the usefulness of the rest of it depends upon. Living from the void. Now, this is the 11th verse of the Tao Te Ching, and this is what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to say about it. Once again, reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. We haven't done a Tuesday Tao for a while, so I thought it'd be nice. And once again, I felt inspired to do so. Wayne Dyer says, quote, "In this thought-provoking 11th verse of the Tao Te Ching, Lao-tzu cites the value of an emptiness that often goes unnoticed, but I'll add during, times of loss, times of great loss of loved ones, that this emptiness comes to the forefront." I don't know why, I'm just feeling inspired to say this. So that this emptiness comes to the forefront and we begin to notice it. When, as Dr. Wayne Dyer says there, that it so often goes unnoticed. And not only this emptiness, but that there is a value in it. Now, I'm not saying it's a good thing to lose someone and have a hole, metaphorically, in your heart or in your life. But that there is a value of an emptiness that we so often don't notice in all of our focusing on the cart and the spokes, or focusing on the vessel or the pitcher and the pot, or focusing on the fine doors and windows and walls. But once again, it is the emptiness in the room that makes it useful. It is the space within the clay, pot, pitcher, that makes it useful and valuable. And what it is this, the usefulness of what is depends upon what is not. And so Lao-tzu cites the value of this source, this emptiness, this Tao that is behind all things, that is unseen, but that is doing it all, that makes everything useful from this source that is not, that makes everything that is useful because of what is not. He explains the idea, Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, with images of the hole in the center of a hub, the space within a clay vessel, and the interior area of a room, concluding that, quote, the usefulness of what is depends upon what is not. It's important to repeat things, because the more you repeat something that it has a very deep and profound meaning, the more that deep and profound meaning can work its way towards the surface. The cream that rises to the top? I don't know if that was a fitting statement. However, in other words, Wayne Dyer continues, quote, separated parts lack the usefulness that the center contributes. So the separate things, all of our thoughts and, activities and the way we feel about all of life, whether we get frustrated or those are really just the things, but not really what is. That's like saying it's the vessel or the walls or the windows. The separate parts. Remember, see, that goes back to the oneness, the unity, that out of which springs forth all creation and duality, as we experience it here in the physical realm. But remember, we are dual beings. We have a dual nature. We are mortal and physical, and then we are immortal and spiritual. And this is our dual nature. It says in Hermetics that men are but mortal gods, men and women, of course, and gods are but immortal men. And so, living from the void, separate parts, this duality that we see and that we so tend to experience because of our physical mortal nature and our dual nature, this duality, this separateness, rather than a connectedness and a oneness with all things. Like I am not separate from the orchids or the vining leaf plant. I really don't know the name of the plant, but it is as much a part of this experience as I am. I mean, that goes back to, I think, therefore I am. No, that goes back to that we quantumly affect the things that we observe anyways. And so we are therefore quantumly entangled, or in another way to put it, that we are at a very deep level connected to everything that we experience. And I think collectively as humanity, in all of reality, is this oneness, that this separateness that we tend to see everything as comes from. And so the separate parts lack the usefulness of the center contribution, so of that oneness. The usefulness of the source, which all comes from, which all springs from, once again, the Tao, God, Great Spirit, whatever you want to call it. The usefulness of what is depends upon what is not. The separate parts lack the usefulness that the center contributes. This passage, Wayne Dyer continues, quote, invites us to live from the invisible void that's at the core of our very being, to live from this space that is our center, that is our connection to God, Tao, Spirit, that trying to do anything really defeats the purpose. Doing nothing and leaving nothing undone. There's an old Tao saying, I think, that says you are not doing anything, you are being done. And that makes me think of the philosophy of not really trying to control and force and push reality in life and try to demand it to meet your terms, and always battling with yourself in reality in that way by pushing against it rather than allowing the door to open inward, if that's a decent metaphor. Allowing the doorway to open inward to this center place from which the usefulness of ourselves and all of reality springs forth from. This place in which where we are connected to everything and we are not separate from anything. And if God is universal, universe, one song, it means that in this one song that there is nowhere that it is not. So that also means that it is within you and me and the birds and the trees and the plants and the bees. I don't know. Random poetry today, I guess. Once again, I hope you're getting value. I really do, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I do this. To at least hopefully make a difference for somebody somewhere who randomly stumbles across this video and needed it. Because that has been me many, many, many times. I'll stumble across videos from people that I've watched for a short while, and then that video, especially like 35 minutes in or something, that is really where the profound moments happen that really help you continue through your journey. Now, Wayne Dyer says, this passage invites us to live from the invisible void that's at the core of our very being. That is, to change how we think about it. This invisible void that is at the core of our very being. How do we think of this emptiness, this oneness, the center, the space within? Well, Dr. Wayne Dyer continues, consider the paradoxical term, non-being, as you ponder your own beingness. We are comprised of bones, organs, and rivers of fluids that are encapsulated by a huge sheet of skin molded to hold you, me, and each and every one of us together. I mean, you could use the same description for a plant. And so there's definitely, Wayne Dyer continues, a distinctive quality of beingness that is you. In this arrangement of all of these individual bodily parts. Yet, if it were possible to disassemble you and lay all of your still functioning physical components on a blanket, there would be no you. So therefore, I think what Dr. Wayne Dyer is saying is that the you, the me, the true us, who we really are, who you really are, ladies and gentlemen, is not the physical components that make up our body, not the separate parts. It's not the clay pot or the water pitcher, is what it really is. The essence of who and what we really are, we'll see where Wayne Dyer goes, is beyond just these physical components, these separate parts that lack the usefulness of the whole and what is within the center and the space that lies between. Although all of the parts would be there, Wayne Dyer continues, their usefulness depends on a non-beingness, or in Lao-tzu's words, what is not. So the usefulness of our bodies depends on what is not our body. And that many try to describe as the spirit or the soul. And there's many descriptions for those as well, which I like the Hermetic versions, but everybody has their own philosophy, and I will change as I learn more and grow and add more understandings and philosophies to my, I guess, collection within. I mean, what do you even call that? What do you even call that? But you know, it's this idea that you never fully get there. It's like you are always evolving your understanding the as long as you're presented with new information. And hopefully new information should be presenting itself all of the time. And when you're trying to, as Hermes Trismegistus put it, or the Egyptian sage god Thoth, Tahat, there can be no religion more true or just than to simply seek to know the things that are, and then to honor them with piety and reverence, and try to keep it. It's very fascinating. I never really know where I'm going to go with these videos. As you can tell, none of this is scripted. This is just me doing what I would do here with you. And I get a kick out of it. It's so fun to see each and every one of you in the premieres, the live chats, and in the comments in the future. It's so great to see your thoughts. We get to see so many people put in so many good thoughts. Now, imagine lining up the walls of your room you're presently in with all of the elements present. Without the space of the center, it is no longer a room. Even though everything else is the same, a clay pot is not a pot without the emptiness that the clay encapsulates. A house is not a house if there's no inner space. For the exterior to enclose, see the inner space there and the exterior. The exterior being what is, and the inner space being what is not. Remember, what is depends upon what is not. A composer once told me, I was hoping he would get to the silence between the notes that makes the music. Dr. Wayne Dyer says, quote, a composer once told me that the silence from which each note emerges is more important than the note itself. So that goes back to the beginning where I'm like, I could just sit here silently, and that would probably be more productive than saying anything. Because then maybe we might get closer to what it is that we are seeking, if we should even be seeking anything at all. But this silence from which each note emerges from, see, maybe it is the silence when we can get peaceful and silent within ourselves that is where the most important understandings and personal insights and revelations and quote unquote enlightenments for ourselves, the aha moments, the satori. It is this silence, this oneness, this space, this void, from which the importance emerges and shows itself. Dr. Wayne Dyer continues. He said that it's the empty space between the notes that literally allows the music to even be music. If there's no void, there is only continuous sound. You can apply this subtle awareness, he continues, to everything that you experience in our daily lives. Ask yourself, what makes a tree a tree? The bark, the branches, the roots, the leaves? I mean, no tree is so foolish to have its branches or leaves fight amongst themselves. It's just another quote that I remember from somewhere. And it would be even more foolish to try to say any leaf is more perfect than the other, because they are all a part of the whole. The roots, the leaves, all of these things are what is. And all of them do not constitute a tree. What's needed to have a tree is what is not. An imperceptible, imperceivable, inconceivable. I don't think that word means what you think it means. An invisible life force, so to speak, that eludes our five senses, that is not any of the components or the separate pieces or the parts, but is what it all depends upon for being, from a non-beingness. We can't find this essence, this source, this force, this Tao. You can cut and carve and search the cells of a tree endlessly, all the way down to vibrations and waves turning into particles at the quantum level. And we find really that we'll never capture it. This void, this space, this center, this emptiness that everything hinges upon and depends upon for its very being. This non-beingness that maybe we all really are. In the first line of this 11th verse of the Tao Te Ching, that hole in the center that's necessary for the movement of the wheel that the whole cart depends upon can be likened to the void that's vital for us to move through in our lives. The void that's vital for you to move through in your life, Wayne Dyer says. You have an inner state of non-being at your center. So take note of what is visible, quote unquote, your body, as well as the invisible essence that your existence depends upon. That Tao part of you. The following is what I hear, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, Lao-tzu saying to you and to me and to us regarding this concept of living in the void in today's world. Because remember, the wisdom of Lao-tzu comes to us from over 25 centuries ago. The ancient wisdom to today in a modern world, representing the great way. And so here's what Dr. Wayne Dyer hears Lao-tzu saying to us regarding this concept of living in the void in today's world. He says, your imperceptible center is your vital essence. He recommends, he says here, quote, take the time to shift your situation and your attention. Most importantly, remember the aspect of mind is the most important, and what we focus on. Remember, secret of the universe, what you think about expands. Take the time to shift your attention to the so-called nothingness that is your essence. Think about the difference between something and its dependence upon no thing, like we've been describing this whole video. I have, once again, no idea what I'm going to title this. Hopefully it reaches who needs it. What does it beckon you towards? So when we can take the time to shift our attention to the so-called nothingness that is our essence, what does it beckon you toward? The space emanates from the invisibleness that's responsible for all of creation. Like we were saying earlier, the space from which all things spring forth from. The oneness as the creator or creation of reality and duality. What does it beckon you towards? The space emanates from the invisibleness that is responsible for all of creation, and the thoughts that emerge from your inner self are pure love and kindness. Your inner non-beingness isn't a separate part of you. So seek that mysterious center and explore it. Perhaps think of it as a space contained by your physical self, from which all of your thoughts and perceptions flow into the world. Rather than trying to have positive, loving notions, simply be sensitive to the essence of our beingness. The way of the Tao, the way of the way, the natural way, maybe you could put it. The way of the Tao is to allow things rather than to try. Thus, allow that essential center of pure love to activate your unique usefulness. Allow thoughts that emerge to enter your physical self and then leave. Allow and let go, just like you're breathing. Breathing is a reciprocal action. It's a reciprocity. It's a giving and a taking. We can take as much breath as we possibly can, but we eventually have to give it back. And as we give, we then receive again. Thus, allow this essential center to be pure love and activate our unique usefulness. Allow thoughts that emerge from this space enter into ourselves, but then also allow them to leave. Allow and let go. Remember, the way of the Tao is to allow rather than to try. It's a psychology of arriving rather than striving. When we can arrive and be here and allow, then the experience is of much higher quality than if we are always pushing and striving and forcing and trying to control, allow rather than try. And when we can do this, allow and let go, just like our breathing, the peace, it's just, it should be obvious by now. The experience will change. What we look at will change because we change the way that we are looking at it. Remember, the title of the book is Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. And so if we can begin to change the way that we think about this void, this emptiness, to understand it in this new way that Lao-tzu is teaching us from 2,500 years ago, and vow to spend some time each day just being and being attentive to the awesome power of your imperceptible vital essence, as Dr. Wayne Dyer puts it. We're almost to the end here, so hang on. He reminds us again, practice the power of silence every day. There are many individual ways of doing this. Example, meditation is a wonderful tool to help you feel the bliss that accompanies your connection to the space within, the silence, just being, which takes a lot of practice for those of us that have never practiced it. I honestly need to practice it more. So, once again, I am no master. I am no guru. Be your own guru. Guide your own spirit and master your own ascension. Ask questions and question answers. Most importantly, but to help us feel this bliss that comes with getting in connection to this inner space upon which everything depends upon, that place where we experience the way of God, the way of the Tao, this connection to reality, and vow to be more aware of the placeless place within you, where all of your thoughts flow outward. Find your way to enter this space within you that is clean, that is pure, and that is in harmony with love. So many people say God is love. Some of the greatest spiritual teachers have told us simply that God is love. And so if you could have a loving nature, or maybe a nature of oneness and connection that creates that thought and understanding of love that we have so long tried to describe, but really, which is an undescribable thing. So see, that's interesting. Love is almost impossible to have an accurate description, and also God. I never caught that connection before, that you can hardly even describe either one of them. And trying to do so with thoughts and words makes it even more difficult to comprehend. The difference, Dr. Wayne Dyer says, between saints, gurus, and, very high level spiritual people, and the rest of us isn't that they have loving, pure beliefs, and we don't, but rather they function solely. It's not that we all don't have loving and nice thoughts. The only difference is they don't have anything else. They function solely from their essence, where the way of the Tao flows invisibly through their physical being. This is the primary purpose of learning to meditate, or simply to contemplate and to be in the silence, and inviting that inner space within you, your essence, to reveal itself out of this silence, out of this oneness, into creation, and allowing you to live in the void and in the world. And finally, at the end of every one of these wonderful little chapters from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. Today was the 11th verse of the Tao Te Ching, randomly. He gives us a little chapter, a little paragraph here that says, do the Tao now. It's a recommendation how we can practically put this wisdom into action in our lives today. So once again, I love and appreciate each and every one of you for being here, joining me, and I hope you get value. Now let's do the Tao now, Tuesday Tao. Spend at least 15 minutes today living in the void that is you. So maybe that's my personal challenge for the day, and this is why I felt inspired to read this verse. Put the timer on and set it out of reach so you can't keep checking it to see if it's been 5 minutes or not. And allow in silence the thoughts to show up and then to go. And allow from out of the silence, the void that is you, something else to come. Do the Tao now. Spend at least 15 minutes today, Wayne Dyer says, living in the void that is you. Ignore your body and your surroundings. Let go of your material identifications, such as your name, your age, your ethnicity, your job title, your location, and so on. Just be in that space between, that void which is absolutely crucial to our very existence. Look out at your world from, quote, what is not. Look out at what is, from, quote, what is not, and appreciate that. And appreciate that your very usefulness, our very usefulness, and we are all useful, none of us is worthless. So do not ever think of yourself in such a way. And appreciate that your very usefulness as a material being is completely dependent upon this void that we spring forth from. Now work today on befriending and becoming a friend and becoming acquainted with this part of ourselves, this space between, this placeless place, quote unquote, and this what is not place that is a part of each and every one of us. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is living from the void, and a boon to the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching and Lao-tzu and Dr. Wayne W. Dyer, and the 11th verse of the Tao. I don't know where that came from. That came out of nowhere, but looks like it's been almost an hour, so thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Enlightenment to me just means a greater awareness and a greater understanding of the nature of reality and the things that are. And remember to seek to discover the lost mysteries of our history and the wisdom of the ages. And also, most importantly, remember that there is no way to happiness. This goes back to that trying rather than allowing, or striving rather than arriving and being here. There is no way to happiness because happiness is the way. So we can allow and be here and bring happiness to life in the moment. Then all the things that we've been telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there and have this much money or becomes irrelevant, because then we are there. And then hopefully the entire journey is wonderful. All right. Love and appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to expand the description below the video to get the book for yourself, so you can put it on your shelf, ladies and gentlemen. I'll just set it over here for now so you can see it. Put it on your shelf and get it for yourself, as well as a link to C60 Purple Power, the most powerful antioxidant known to man. I've been needing to get myself some for a while, so maybe this week will be the week to get back into super health, ladies and gentlemen. So, I mean, we can go from, symptoms to health, but then we can go from health to super health. I mean, we all have our opportunities, which is my translation of struggles or difficulties, opportunities to deal with, but that doesn't mean we can't be arriving at much greater things for ourselves in our life. All right. I'll leave it there, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, I'll be inspired tomorrow to continue our series in the Corpus Hermeticum, the Divine Pymander, original manuscript Hermes Trismegistus, 3rd century AD, and diving deeper into the esoteric, occult knowledge and wisdom, spiritual philosophy, I just like to call it. Some people get too wrapped up in the very deep, deep areas of these kind of topics, but to me, it is spiritual philosophy and the understanding of Hermetics. It looks like we are about 60 verses into that, and there's 128, so we have about halfway to go, ladies and gentlemen. So until next time, Be the change you want to see. Be the example that you want to set. No, 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 no.